listening to the New Brew podcast. Let's dive right in.
G'day everyone, my name's Jason.
I'm Jared.
My name's Kyle.
I'm Tash.
Hey guys, my name's Rowan.
And hi, I am Hema.
Hello, and I'm Dr. Sandy, and we are the New Brew podcast. Who are we? We're primary or elementary teachers, and who do we teach? We teach kids' age groups from 5-year-olds to 12-year-olds. So our vision is to support primary pre-service teachers or elementary pre-service teachers. So before I start, I would like to acknowledge country. Where I reside, I live in the Dakinyang country. I would like to acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional owners of Australia. We acknowledge their continuing connection to land and water and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. So, most people here in the podcast I've met through social media or teaching, and one of the things I like to be is an encourager, all right, and a hope chaser. And would like to start off today's episode, which is episode 1 for our series Fear to Teach, with a quote that has always resonated with me. Aristotle's often talked about as one of the fathers in education, and I really think this makes sense, especially with our series. The roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet. So becoming a teacher is really hard. We have to face a lot of our own fears, our own worries. And I think that's why this podcast is really important for us. I want to make it an area where pre-service teachers get to run things. They get to lead it, not me. So I'm trying to flip a lot of things, what we call flipping in education. And it's a big movement globally. And the whole idea for me is, for my PhD, giving pre-service teachers a voice, a chance to say what they want to do, how they want to learn. Okay, so what's my background? Just really quickly, I did nursing before I did teaching. I actually did oncology nursing in my early 20s, and I saw people pass away. I held a lot of hands as people passed away, and it was really a groundbreaking experience for me because it changed my way of thinking, my understanding of the world. And so ever since then, I've always wanted to be inclusive. And what is inclusive? It's really simple. Don't judge. Just accept however people come, okay? And we start with people's strengths and their positives. We recognise where they might need some extra support and help and move on. So that's basically the nuts and bolts of my ideas. My PhD, what was it about? You guys, I was really honoured. I actually got us to sit around drinking a brew, and everyone had different types of brew, and I listened for 2 years on prac. So our focus for this podcast is prac, or professional experience, and how people learnt to teach. In particular, how they learnt to engage that student that was reluctant, who didn't want to be at school. You might relate to that yourselves. So in a nutshell, I no longer work at universities. I actually have decided to make supporting you guys and becoming your advocate my priority. And part of that priority is putting things into practice of my PhD and my vision. My vision is to support you to be your number one fan. I actually am your number one fan. So, and what do I stand by? I like inquiry. I like what they call the 4 C's. So the 4 C's are critical thinking, creativity, communication, and collaboration. I think all of this podcast is showing those things. So let me introduce you. Who are us? All right, so I've been saying the word curator. There's a reason why I say curator. Curator is a different way of thinking. I don't like the idea of people, when they're in charge, being a boss. I cannot stand bosses. And leaders, really good leaders are rare. And the leaders I relate to are more like custodians. All right, so curator matches the idea of custodian. So if you think about, like, in terms of Indigenous communities, custodians look after the land for us and so on. And the whole idea is to help others. So what is a curator? Because each person here is a curator. They build maybe up a collection. Often they're a specialist or specialise in one area. And they do things like in art galleries and museums, they collect artefacts and so on and tell us the background information about it, which I find fascinating. So I'm going to introduce you to our curators today. Each one will be running an episode for Fear to Teach. I get to be the curator in the background, and I just basically cheer them on. And if people need me to support them or answer questions or continue with different ideas, that's going to be my role. So, the series is called Fear to Teach. Episode 2 is Fear to the Journey. And I know that's a big area for a lot of us when we first start, is we don't know what's ahead. We're very, very nervous. So, our first episode will be run by our curator, Jason. Before I introduce you to Jason, I want to tell you why did I invite Jason to be a curator. So we call ourselves the New Brew crew, and this is a podcast. I have to tell you a few things, and he doesn't mind, I'm sure. When he entered the room, because I was his tutor for his very first unit, he had a presence. I was standing near the interactive whiteboard, and I just watched them all walk in, petrified. I know what they're like because I've worked at unis for years. But he walked in with a presence. There was just this aura about him. And then I just watched him in tutorials. He laughed a lot. He's got the best laugh. But the thing that really went to me, I went, yeah, this is the guy for this group, was they had to do a mini lesson. And I still laugh. Sorry, I laugh a lot. He wasn't sure what to do, but I already had talked to him a lot during the semester. So I said to him, I know you run tranny bingos on Saturday nights. Teach us how to play bingo. Sure enough, the Jason that I knew that existed stepped up and he taught his group how to play bingo. And I'm not joking, as I walked around the room, his table, everyone was laughing. And I think that's the way his teaching is going to be. When he's a teacher, his classrooms are going to be full of love and laughter. So over to you, Jason. In 2 minutes, who are you? And what is your role as a curator for the New Brew? Over to you.
Oh, thanks, Sandy. You've had me in tears, actually, listening to you right now. So, I speak for everyone. Thank you so much for bringing us all on for this project. It's nothing could ever really express the gratitude that we all have. But the main reason I wanted to take part in the project was because my mission statement in life is to inspire others. And being in my first year and just about to start my second semester, I'm still uneasy about what to expect in the classroom. And I want other pre-service teachers and those who may be thinking about teaching to know that it's okay to be worried and to have that fear that they may hold, that holds them back, really. So my topic in the first episode, which will be available right after this podcast today, is the fear of the journey. And during that episode, we'll be talking to a fourth year student and comparing the journey from first to fourth year and discussing fears related to the journey, especially on prac.
I love it. Now, you're going to have your own page on our website, the New Brew podcast. Would you just like to explain to us what area you would like to be the curator and your speciality is?
So my speciality, it's under a big heading and it's all under inclusivity because I do drag. That's my main source of income at the moment. Well, not really because of, COVID and everything. But I really see a need for change in the world. And I see a need for change, especially in primary school classrooms, under that inclusivity banner. So when it comes to the web page, I'm really hoping that we can break those boundaries that are in classrooms at the moment.
I love it. So what we're going to do, everyone, is each curator's got a page that they're going to be in charge of, and things like inclusion are going to be there. Jason's going to be offering ideas on how to be gender-oriented with inclusion, and inviting and welcoming that child that comes in with in their backpack. I call it a backpack. When you walk in, everyone walks into the classroom with a different backpack, different fears as well. And so we'll be addressing things like, well, are you inclusive with gender inclusivity? How are you inclusive with sexuality and all those things? Because that's something that we do need to be mindful of. I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled that you said yes. When you said yes, I jumped with joy. So I'm really, really happy.
Well, I think it's really special to be talking about these really hard topics as well. So to be able to do this on a worldwide platform is just amazing.
Yeah, thumbs up from me and everyone else. So, episode 3, Fear to Teach. I know another area that a lot of teachers, pre-service or primary pre-service teachers are fearful of is technology, including myself, all right? You need to understand every day I challenge myself. Every day I have fears. Everyone thinks, oh, you got a PhD, Sandy, you must be okay. Yeah. So I'm smart enough to know what my limitations are. So I call on my gurus, my curators. Jason's one curator, and I'm going to introduce you to the next curator for episode 3, which is Jared. Now, I'm going to tell you, because this is what Jared, I told everyone before the podcast, I'm not explaining to them how or why I decided to approach them until now. Jared, it wasn't about technology that made me want to invite you to be a curator. One day, I heard a car coming down the car park, and that car had the best sound I have ever heard with the mufflers. So I looked up. I'm not joking. I watched this young guy drive in with, I think he had Ray-Ban glasses on, and he was cool. I really went, yeah, I like you. And there was a girl that was walking to class next to me, and she goes, who is he? Do you know him? And I said, I don't, but I'm going to find out who he is. Sure enough, I walked to class, and he was there. I had actually met him before as well, and it sort of all started to connect because where I live and where we live, there's a club where people do bingo and they do raffles and so on. And I had actually met Jared as the mic guy for the raffles, and I just cracked up because he's really good on mic. He's got fantastic mic work, but it gets deeper than that. I would watch him walking tutorials. He has an essence about him, an aura about him, which I love. It's a confidence, but not a confidence. So it's hard to explain, but some people in life, they come across as confident, but they're probably not confident in everything, but they just will give it a go. But if they do, they will just give it a go, and that's the observation I've seen with Jared. And for me, that makes him the perfect technology whiz because he's got that diving mentality. And he made me laugh a lot in tutorials in our labs. He was wonderful because he was teamed up with someone who wasn't strong at technology for an assignment, and the two of them produced one of the best assignments I've seen in my in that sort of field, that area, because he brought in his technology whiz, she brought in her academia writing whiz, and together they were masterful. So over to you, Jared. In 2 minutes, who are you and your role of the curator? Off you go.
So I'm Jared. As Sandy was explaining, I had a background in promos work at a local club, and I've been currently studying primary school teaching for 4 years now, studying part-time, and I've just had this passion for technology. I've always had that interest in exploring different kind of tech stuff. I got that from my granddad. He's quite he likes his little knickknacks, technology knickknacks. So I was like, oh, I've got to get something to compete against him, and that's what developed and helped me with getting the interest in technology. So, and then once I started studying, and one of the subjects, a lot of those subjects were talking about technology, but very briefly. So I wanted to go crazy with how we can implement technology in the most creative ways as possible. So once we started understanding, that we can do this, we can implement this into our teaching, that's when I was like, I want to be a part of it. And especially when Sandy especially loves to change everything, like wants to get everything new and modern and starts transforming how education is laid out. And she's given me the opportunity to be that technology representative to really talk about like my passion, and then find people that have applied this and actually using this to their teaching. So my guest that I'm using for my episode, I had him in a tutorial and he was fantastic. Brought a 3D printer in, and that was just as soon as I started, I was like, this first episode of technology, I knew he was the guy to launch it for our first episode. So yeah, stay tuned. After Jason's episode, we will be doing that as well. So we'll be exploring that areas of technology with him.
Can't wait. Really, really excited. And I do know who the guest is, and I agree. He teaches me so much. So I've worked with him in the background. All right, episode 4. All right, I'm thrilled about this one for another reason. They're our lovebirds. So we've got 2 little lovebirds in our group, and that's what caught my eye when I first started watching these 2 amazing pre-service teachers. So I'm going to introduce you to Kyle first, and then Tash. But I want to talk about the lovebird dynamic. All right, so I've watched these two, Kyle and Tash, walking on campus together, buzzing together, and they have a beautiful dynamic. And I know a lot of teachers meet other teachers when they're studying and actually marry each other. Not these two. These two, incredible. So they've told me their journey, and they might want to tell it to you as the time goes on. They actually have come from other careers, and it all makes sense to me now because Tash did real estate, and Kyle has done more to do with working with children in areas of charity and so on. But what I notice the most about them is that love together to help each other. Like when you see a couple that I would call soulmates, you just know. And that's what I see with these two. And then the more I get to know them, the more I just love it because Kyle has like an entrepreneur way of thinking, which I love because it's not something that comes naturally to me. And Tash, she can see any business plan. She can write anything to do with any of that planning stuff. I think that's awesome. But even more, it gets better. They want to look after people in the rural region. They want to go out teaching rurally together. They want to be involved in Indigenous, and particularly Indigenous, and their passion. And I just go, every time I talk to these two in a tutorial or watch them on campus, I just go, how fortunate are we in primary to have these two? And actually to be honest, all pre-service teachers that I meet, I just go, we are so blessed. We are so fortunate. So let me introduce you to Kyle first. He's our entrepreneur curator. All right, so he's our business curator. He's our visionary. And in particular, he's going to help with Indigenous and that lack of confidence that we might have and rural. So over to you, Kyle. Tell us about you and your role as the curator. Off you go.
So when I first heard of this podcast, I couldn't be more happy. Coming through university, I'd seen glimpses and glamours of Indigenous culture and stuff, but it more struck me home being in a tutor who is going to be our guest in this episode, who obviously inspired me to obviously pursue this type of topic. Coming with I have two brothers who are both Indigenous, and I just couldn't seem to know why they weren't getting the best grades or they were getting ostracized in the current education system. But obviously going through university now, you can see the cracks in the concrete, which obviously promote that uninclusiveness. So myself, I come from a before and after school care background, getting a diploma in before and after school care, running different services and seeing all different types of children. I kind of wanted to pursue more of a formal teaching background. Ush is very much spontaneous and children's interests, which obviously helped me. Obviously, all children are different, and that has obviously given me a lot of strength in this type of topic. So yeah, I come from an Ush background. My brothers both inspired me to pursue this topic of Indigenous culture, and I can't wait to get started.
I'm so thrilled. I watch you. So Kyle is the type of student that will come to me at every tut and say, Sandy, I want to check this part with you. I want to ask this part with you, because his passion is so deep, so raw, so honest. He wants to do and make a difference. And I just go, I will do whatever I can to encourage you. I will do whatever I can to get you up and running as a great teacher, because I have no doubt in my mind that you are going to be one of the most amazing teachers in this area of Indigenous. And gosh, we've got a lot to do. So we know Close the Gap, which is the big policy in Australia, is not going very well. We're trying. So we started that in 2010, and we're reviewing it again in 2020. And I always say things like this: it's no reason to give up. It's reason to push harder, fight harder for these kids that are not getting a fair go, because that tail in Australia is frightening for me. So, but I know we're going to have these amazing people like you. And now over to Tash. So Tash has a real estate background, and I love it. So I've been looking at her gorgeous photos of her, and on TikTok, she's one of our TikTok stars, because she's got that presence as well on TV, on the screen. So she's very good with business plans, and she's been working on our business plan for us as a curator. For me, these skills don't come naturally for me. I'm more a thinker, a planner. I'm in the cloud. They call it in the clouds type thinker. So I really need and I really value some people when I meet them who can help me put that stuff together, my ideas together. And that's our Tash. She's an amazing curator that way. So over to you. Oh, sorry, one more thing. The other thing that I kept on noticing about Tash is her amazing nails. She has the best nails. You know the nails that people get done.
They're
at
not
the nail
cheap.
place.
I tell you, they're not cheap.
They're not cheap.
They're not cheap. High maintenance.
And I watch
9
her
years
in
of high
tutorials.
maintenance.
I know, and I watch her in tutorials, and she's got her little laptop, and she goes tap 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 tap, and I look at her hands, and I go, how does she tap without them falling off? How? And then I go to myself, how does she clean in her house? How does she? But you know what?
A lot of tears and a lot of maintenance. That's how they get through.
But I love it, and I have to say I love the sound of nails tapping because I hear in tutorials and everyone's working these nails tapping on laptops, and I love it. So over to you, Tash.
Thank you so much, Sandy. So to start me off, I actually haven't been able to get my nails done because of COVID. So I don't have nails right now, but as soon as they open, that's the first thing I'm doing. So to answer your question, I said yes to the podcast because I saw it as such a unique opportunity, especially, you know, in my first year of uni. I never thought that I'd come across something like this. So I'm honestly so grateful. And when I started uni, I told myself that I wanted to adapt a yes mentality because I've said no to a lot of things, especially, I don't know, real estate did take up a lot of my time. So I did, you know, say no to a lot of opportunities. So adapting that mentality is exactly what got me here. So in my first year, I developed a passion for Indigenous education from two amazing tutors, and Sandy is one of them. And the other one is the person that we will be interviewing as well. So they'll get an introduction later on. So Indigenous education is the topic that I'll be covering with Kyle in our first season of Fear to Teach. I think it's a very important topic I think it's a very important topic to cover in this series because so many teachers are so scared to broach the topic of Indigenous education and place a huge stigma on it. So Kyle and I, we're very excited to cover this topic and get the experience from the host that we're going to have on, and hopefully help pre-service teachers, cover that topic when it comes to prac. So that's us.
Awesome. So just to unpack again, to remind everyone, what we're doing 3 layers of prac information on the website. So under Tash and Kyle's part of the website, there'll be 3 areas that people can access. So one area will be parents who might want to do something to do with Indigenous. So that's going to be like everyday stuff that you've got at home. Particularly with COVID, you don't need to go out. I tried this myself with a thing called Kids at Home with Dr. Sandy last year on Facebook. So now we're sort of more formalising it. Then there's another layer where there'll be lesson plans for people who are going on prac, who are really not sure what to do. And it's not coming from me. I'm not the person guiding them. The person who's going to be their host, who they're going to interview, she's going to step in and guide us as well. So I'm very fortunate. I've collected over the years colleagues who will support me in areas like this because they are the experts. All right. So that's why a curator is a good idea, because I know where to go. So there'll be lesson plans. And then another layer will be actually what we call an inquiry pack, where you'll actually be able to do things like cultures of thinking. All right, so cultures of thinking come from Harvard, and it's this whole idea of helping people to learn to think. Okay, so inquiry type questions and so on. So we will be charging a fee for each part, but that's okay because in the end, I think it'll be value. All right, value added for you and take the pressure off for people. And we want to do engagement done right. That's what one of our mottos, engagement done right. And the whole idea of, for pre-service teachers, all right, we've got, Twinkle and so on. So let's move on to episode 5. I'm really excited. So Fear to Teach, episode 5, we've got a mix of 2 amazing people, Rowan and Hema. So Rowan is our amazing curator to do with creativity and so on. Let me tell you a bit about Rowan. She's a delight. You know what? When you meet someone when you're teaching at a university who has to study for more than the 3 or 4 standard years because of life, I take my hat off to them. All right? This chick has been studying for quite some years, and I get it. All right? Because she's trying to balance her life. She's not, straight from school, but just life in general. We all need to make money to be able to study. But what I love is her passion, absolute passion for creativity. She thinks outside the box. I love it. She makes me think outside the box, which I love. Anyone that makes me think, I embrace. Her creative mind is beyond the universe, pretty much. And she's got the best sense of humour. She makes me laugh all the time. But she has this desire to be so good at her assignments and research. So I taught her in a unit called Researching and Critiquing. And what a privilege. So it was last year during COVID, and we went online all the time, and she wanted to research creativity. My biggest problem for me was I had to hold her back because of the rubric. I didn't want to hold her back. I would not have rubrics as they are at uni because I wanted her to fly with it, because she just blew my mind with ideas. She made diagrams. She did, you name it. Like as in PhD potential. All right. So I'm not saying that she has to do a PhD, but that's the potential that this woman has if she wanted to. But I love that she doesn't want to teach according to subjects. I love that she wants to teach according to creativity. So the ideas are like Montessori, that type of thing, matches this woman incredibly. So tell us about you, Ro, and then your new Brew curation.
Yeah, shucks. Hey everyone. As I said, my name is Rowan. That's an amazing introduction. Thank you, Sandy. I have had a really interesting journey to get to this podcast. As Sandy was saying, I have been actually a pre-service teacher for nearly 10 years, believe it or not. In between that journey, I went off and did an acting degree and went off and have been a professional actress and have been quite successful, which is really lucky, especially in the current climate. But the most important thing is I feel like it's really encouraged my art and my creativity, especially when it comes down to education. So being able to do something like this podcast is such an incredible opportunity for me. As Dr. Sandy was saying, I look at the way that we hold the education system and the way that we have separated a lot of our disciplines and not leaving room for creative thought. And my main thing is imaginative play for all ages. And I think that's a real disappointment, and mainly for pre-service teachers, because we're so nervous about learning everything. When we start putting things into these boxes, it makes it so much harder and creates, I think, more of that fear of being able to do everything perfectly, where I think creativity gives the perfect opportunity for us to be able to open those boundaries and to learn in like a safe and beautiful environment. So me and Hema are really lucky that on our podcast, we are going to be focusing on the fear of teaching creativity. And there is that stigma that means art and drama and all of those things. And those are the main things that we're going to focus on. But we do really want to underpin that creativity is for every discipline. Imaginative play is for every person, going back to inclusivity. It's for adults. It can be for a 9-year-old. It can be for a 4-year-old. Imaginative play is key. That's where the best thoughts happen. Look at Einstein. Look at all these amazing people. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. And we want to create a toolkit for pre-service teachers to feel safer, to give things a go, especially when it comes to creativity.
I love it. Our dive-in mentality hashtag matches you beautifully. Can you share with us a movie you've been in? Because I actually have seen stuff, but I think the audience might like to know.
It's coming up to just after, I think it's 10 years since my first film. I was on The Great Gatsby.
I know.
I was 18 years old.
I loved it.
And that was my first ever film. And I got to work with Baz Luhrmann for an entire year and a half. And if we're talking about creativity, he taught me so much about creativity. But that's a story for another time.
Yes. We have to do a special podcast, I think, on your career, which I adore, absolutely adore. Hema. Now, Hema, she's from Swinburne University. So one of my visions with this podcast is that we're not just stuck in one uni, we're sharing across universities. How did I meet Hema? Social media, of course. That's the way we all meet. So Hema and I stumbled across each other on social media about a year ago, maybe a bit longer. She's a delight. All right. So she's already got me on side because she's got a football team at home. She's got 6 kids. Fajiti, how do you say in Tonga? Children's name?
Tamaiki.
Sorry, I got it completely wrong. Sorry, but yes. So inclusion is her passion, like all of us, in particular multicultural, and the whole idea of language and that digital gap. It all makes sense because the more I get to know Hema, the more I go, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. All right, so she's managing to work in Mount Druitt, which was where I first started teaching. And for those who don't know, Sydney, that's a hard to teach area where teachers don't want to be there. She lives in the Gadigal country, is always very mindful of acknowledging Indigenous communities, really respectful in terms of non-English speaking background and that inclusive nature of things like, when people who are coming from war-torn countries to Australia. She's really proud of her Tongan heritage, which I'm so thrilled about. I love. What else can I say about this woman apart from I just think she's incredible. Now, last year I started a thing called Kids at Home with Dr. Sandy on Facebook. It's a closed up group now. You can join if you would like to, but you have to apply now. And the whole idea was when we were during COVID, I've taught online forever. So for me, it's easy to teach online. I know what to do. So I popped on every day at 5:30 and did my inquiry lessons where we did investigation. We went traveling around the world so we were archaeologists and we, found an artifact, Indigenous artifact, and we investigated it. Hema and her crew came on so often, and it just made my day to know that it wasn't just her family, but there were other families coming on, joining in with me, and Ro would come in when she could come in to join in. And it was, for me, I wanted to give back. I didn't know how else to give back because I'm not a wealthy person, but I know how to teach. I know how to teach online, so I wanted to share that with people. So over to you, Hema. Who are you? And you are our cultural or multicultural and inclusion-oriented curator. Would you like to share with us about that?
Hi everyone. So my name is Hema. So I am from the Kingdom Island of Tonga in the Pacific. What I bring is a very strong sense of culture, my identity, and a strong culture and language. And I don't know if you all know this, but we are the only kingdom, like island, that has never been colonized. I don't know if that makes sense. But when we're talking about closing the gap, like in terms of First Nations, you need a strong culture and you need language. And without that, I don't know. You can talk to me in English, you're talking in my head, but if you talk to me in my language, I mean, you're talking to my heart.
That's
And
beautiful.
oh my gosh, sorry, I'm just getting. So I actually online with doing teaching online with Swinburne, so doing my masters with Swinburne, and that is such a big challenge for me because it's me and my brain trying to make sense of everything. So last year in lockdown, Sandy was a saving grace for me. um, when you're learning online, I could not get the connections between the theory of teaching, but when I could see her doing her stuff online at the kids on the Facebook page, that gave me that connection. And I'm still unpacking it. I'm still processing it. Oh, that's what she was doing. Oh, that's what she was doing. So that gave me a great connection there. Um, yes. Oh, gosh, I don't know what else to say.
Can you see how humble Hema is? And that's another common theme with everyone here. Everyone's humble. All right. So I'm not a fan of people that try and push their ideas on us. More, this is how I live. Come and join me if you want to. And that's something really powerful that you offer, Hema. I think you're right. It comes from your Tongan core. I'm sure. And it's fascinating. I would love to actually do a podcast just with you on our own, how people from Tonga have been like they are, because you might be onto something there actually in terms of helping close the gap.
Because we do have a strong connection. We have a really strong connection, and it's all about relationship building. It's doing things that connects us to land. I have a strong connection back to my island, but even just here, everything that we do, even the name New Brew, just connects us back to the land. I don't know if you guys know that, but we all come from different lands. We all bring our own brew, and we're connecting it to the land. So it's just the way we see things.
I love it.
So why I said yes to Sandy was because we need more diversity in this world. Sandy, you had me at, hi Emma, would you?
We could make a movie. We might get our movie crew onto it for us.
And I
Yeah.
could see that diversity was needed. You know, I think I'm the oldest one here. I'm a mature age. I'm the only mother here.
Break those barriers. Let's break those barriers.
So I bring some flavor. I bring some Pacific Island flavor to this brew.
I can't wait. We are the fortunate ones, and yes, so that's something I'm really mindful of. I try really hard to get as many in terms of a dynamic going on here. There were some people that couldn't join us. I would have had more in our group, so that I recognise myself. I can see that there are a few holes in our dynamic still, but that's okay. We'll pick it up. Don't worry. It's in my head. I know what we need to add to it, and in particular things like, mothers and so on. They're huge in studying, and fathers and so on. So yeah, it's in my head to plant some more seeds with that. So thank you, Heba.
But the most important reason why I said is I could see the benefit that it can
Yeah.
have for my community.
That's beautiful.
You can share that. You can share your perception and your values in your education. It makes it much more of a quality teaching,
Yeah.
quality pedagogy.
Yeah. Oh, you're making me cry, Hema. You always make me want to cry when I talk to you.
Can I just really quickly say, Hema, I can listen to you talk all day, 100%.
Yeah.
I can listen to you talk all day.
So we should just do a podcast that goes all day.
Yeah, that's right. So I apologise, I'm a crier. I'm an empath. So empaths cry, but we can be quite strong. So if I end up crying at any point, just ignore it, because I'm actually fine. I can't help it. It's just because I love people.
It was so peaceful when Hema talks. It's
I
like
know,
ASMR.
I know.
Yeah.
We can't go on holidays. Let's have Hema. All right, so we're going to keep going. So we're going to go around quickly and just say in one sentence what our fear at the moment is to teach, because that's our series topic for title, and it's really important. I still have fears. All right, it's not. So don't think Sandy's fine. She's not. So over to you, Jason. What's your fear?
I'm fearful of everything that lies ahead, still being in my first semester, just finished first year. I'm still fearful of everything that comes after now, really.
Jared.
My fear of teaching, it's really trying to make sure that every child has a quality outcome out of everything I teach. Especially with the new stuff, I want to incorporate technology, modern aspects to education, and I just want to make it so it's enjoyable for the kids, for them to make memories out of it, and hopefully I aim to do that with every child in my class.
Lovely. Kyle.
My fear is to not be able to accommodate the correct pedagogy for all my students in inclusiveness. I feel like that's a fear of a lot of teachers, not being able to accommodate for every single student in their class. So I'd like to obviously use this platform and create the resources and the knowledge to be able to accommodate all that educational knowledge to my students for them to succeed.
Tash?
My biggest fear as a pre-service teacher is not having stepped foot into a classroom yet. So I feel like I'm just entering my second year and I have no idea what a classroom looks like. So at the moment, that's my biggest fear.
Mm-hmm. Rowan.
My biggest fear is pretty simple but pretty big. I think it's just the fear of failing and getting it wrong, especially with things that I feel are out of my depth, particularly mathematics.
I've got you
but
covered with that one.
overall, I think it's just the fear of failing, and it's not even just failing myself. I never want to fail people. I'm that kind of person. I never want to fail people. I never want to fail my students. That would just break my heart.
Hema.
So I volunteer to teach at a community language school, which I didn't say before, but my fear, like Roy, is failing our children, but it's actually the classroom in the four walls. I see my journey as not a one-way ticket into the classroom. I want to get out of the classroom. I want to get the kids into the community to learn on country. And my biggest fear is not having that agency to do so. And this whole brew concept is just, we are learning on country. And it's just given me the opportunity and empowering me to do this, to see it happen, that I can do this, and then taking it back into my own community, into my own future classroom, and do the same thing. So thank you, Dr. Sandy.
Wow, thank you. I fear a lot. So I'm going to be really honest with everyone. My biggest fear, probably generally that still plagues me, is my fear of self-doubt. So people go, you don't have self-doubt. I go, oh yeah. So I failed high school. I had a stutter actually when I finished school because of my anxiety of not being as good as everyone else. I've always felt like I'm just not as strong as other people and capable as other people. And I would see people who would study at school and it would just come naturally to them. It doesn't with me. I have to think long and hard on anything. And I think and I think and I think and I think and I think. And I know that sounds really weird to say that because what I do for, I've gotten to the point I've got a PhD. But seriously, and I fight every day with my self-doubt. So I even went to counselling about it because I was too scared to finish my PhD. Now, I know everyone goes, what? I go, yeah. And my counsellor said, no, the problem is you won't look at the evidence, Sandy. You're letting your emotion take over your intelligence. And it was like an epiphany moment for me. She said, what's the evidence, Sandy? And I went, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I came first in my master's at Macquarie Uni. So the whole course I came first. Do you think that would be enough evidence for me to go, well, maybe I could do a PhD? No. All right, so I'm constantly saying to myself, stop doubting yourself, Sandy. Just try your hardest because that's all you can do. And then I think too, if I don't give it a go, well, then who will? Hence, I've stepped up with this podcast and so on because I keep on thinking, I keep on waiting for someone to step up to help you guys to be your biggest fan.
Well, it's so relevant I think that hits home for all of us. You know what I mean? And I think that's what hits home for every pre-service teacher is that self-doubt because it's all those little doubts of I haven't been into the room, I don't want to let people down. I don't know this, this information, and I think that's why this podcast is going to be really special we're trying to make sure that and give something for students and teachers to hold on to.
Yeah. And I still have the one self-doubt that I'm not sure I'll ever get over is I can't sing. I got told in year 5 by my teachers, I got kicked out of the school choir because I couldn't sing in tune.
I never liked
Now,
that.
wait a minute, that was I was 10 and I still don't sing in front of people. I'm thinking, okay, Sandy, you're in your 50s now. When are you going to be able to have the confidence to sing in front of people? It's ridiculous.
See, that for me, I go, that's bad teaching because everyone, when people come up to me and they go, I'm not an artist like you, Ro, I can't draw. It's because someone said they can't draw. Just because you draw a stick figure versus, a Monet, that's still art. You're still being creative. You can still sing. Everyone can sing.
Yeah,
I just don't think we should shut that down.
I will. That's why do you think I love you so dearly? Because I want my eye makeup to be improved.
Come spend a day with me,
I want my outfits to be improved, and I want to learn how to sing.
Yeah, start singing in your car. Start singing in your shower.
So you can imagine, that's right. So you can imagine for someone like me, I couldn't pass my university degree as an undergrad unless I could sing in tune. I am not joking. So I got kicked out when I was 10 for my choir.
Oh my goodness!
And then I'm 25 doing my university degree, and I had to sit in a lecture theatre. I had to stand in a lecture theatre halfway up, just me. And there was, I think, 3 or 4 professors, and I had to sing in tune Do, Re, Mi, and I had to do all this clapping and everything like that. And I'm not joking. They said, if you don't pass this, we will not let you graduate.
See, that's just too much pressure.
Now you can imagine the fear for me.
Professionals don't even like working under those conditions, Sandy.
And it was in a theatre that would have had maybe 500 seats in it. And I was petrified. Well, I clearly passed. But I'm not joking.
Sounds like visual arts last semester. Having to sing into a webcam.
But that's why I can relate to all of you because I've had to face these fears all my life. So we're going to start wrapping up the podcast. So over to you, Jared. How do we get the name?
So when we were doing our planning stage of this podcast, we were very fortunate enough to have an interview with Phil Cummins and Adriana De Prato, very big in the industry in regards to education and taking education to the next level outside the box. And the way he was talking about us, and he said the next batch, you guys are the next batch, and that clicked in my head. I was like, that is the best title and best name for this podcast team because it's the next It's the next slot of teachers. Not saying it's the next batch, but the next creative batch, the next new thing. And obviously you don't want to copy that, but Sandy the genius thought the new brew, very trendy sounding, the new brew, the new creation of a certain teaching drink, like everyone has their own brew, and it's the new brew, and it's everyone's the new brew, and it shows that we are embracing the diversity of every single person's passion and how they can implement that in their pedagogy.
Tash, the series, what are you going to tell us about that? Oh, sorry, Rowan, sorry.
That's okay. So for this season, we were thinking all together when we were in a planning phase, and when it came down to everything and it boiled down to everything, the thing that popped into my head was fear to teach. All the stuff that we've just talked about, even Sandy, all of us, and a lot of pre-service teachers that I've talked to, even when I did my studies, even just talking to classmates, you could see at the end of the day, we have a fear to teach. Now, whether that comes from a societal thing or, in education and what we can do together is a different thing. And I think that's why we've all come together. We want to work together and create a community. Again, going back to inclusiveness and what Hema was saying, we need the community to help us. When you're young and you're learning stuff, there's this thing, especially when you're a teacher, called efficacy beliefs. And that I learned about. And efficacy beliefs is your professional belief in yourself and what you know. And from what I saw from my studies is a lot of us have low self-efficacy beliefs in something, and that's holding us back. And it would be amazing if we could work together to build an education community worldwide that can help one another and lift each other up. I'm not very good at technology. Lucky Jared's here. I'm lucky to know a thing or two about creativity, but I still don't know everything. I'm still really nervous about creativity. That's what these experts are that we're bringing in. They're hopefully going to enlighten us and help us build a toolkit that might help some of you listeners out there, that might make you feel less afraid to go out there and give it a go.
I love it. Love it. Tash, do you want to take over?
Yes, so I've got a question for Dr. Sandy. If you had $1 million, how would you make a change for pre-service teachers?
Oh, $1 million. Okay, I have thought about it. I'd make a 5th century library. And in my 5th century library, so I love 5th century play. I've always loved the idea of when you're learning, you listen, you hear, you see, you taste, you touch. My 5th century library will be these things. Well, everyone says books so you can see them, but I want to go beyond that. I want to make it a multimedia library so you can see whatever you want, digitally, however you want to do it. I want to do the feel part of the library, so have some sort of feely tables, outdoor stuff where you can go out and explore in the community. You can borrow picnic sets, for example, so you can taste food. All right, so smell-o-vision. I'm dying for apps to come through where we can smell as we're learning. Imagine that. I just go, come on, I've got the idea. Someone else work it out, invent it. I've got the ideas. You just go out and fix up the technology stuff, okay, Jared? Hearing, Rookie Magic, yeah. Hearing, so podcast, for example, but we're going to have a disco room there because I've always liked to dance. Nothing better than watching kids dance. If you've never understood kids, just go and watch them in the playground and watch what they do. They are a delight, like as in, toddlers and so on, imaginary play and that stuff. But my number one is there'll be access to borrow pink fluffy blankets. All right, so I love pink, hence my hair. Fluffy because they're touch. There's nothing better than touch and feeling loved. So my pink fluffy blankets will come with heat packs as well. So not only will they be soft and cuddly, but they'll be warm and loving. And if you don't understand touch, then you probably should really research it, because attachment to the person when you're first born generally is the mother, but not always. is the thing that starts or breaks our lives. And I know I'm a strong believer in that attachment theory, it's what it's called. If we don't have that, life's harder. So come to my library, come and get attached to my library. So there's my $1 million. What do you think, Tash?
I think that's fantastic. Good job.
Yeah.
I
want to
I'd
come.
I would just be in it for the disco, to be honest.
Yes, that's right. I was thinking about what else.
Record our podcast. It'll be a recording studio, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But no singing studio.
No, that's right. Yeah, sorry. Yes, there'll be no singing. No, I don't want to hear any songs. So that's going to bring us up to wrap for our first episode. And our series is Fear to Teach. I've had such a wonderful time listening to everyone else. And I've talked a lot this time, but the plan is from each episode, no, I'm not going to, but we just felt that this was the starting one. So I want to leave you with encouragement today. All right, so Aristotle comes back again. And Aristotle said this: educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. I'm going to say it again because it's really powerful. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. So what have we learnt from today? We've learnt, and it's in research, we all have something that we fear about when we're teaching. We all do, irrespective of our careers and where we are in our stage of career. The key is to face our fear, to learn content, for example, which is not the focus of our group, but the big one that we're focusing on is prac. All right, so ideas, hence, what is it? Hashtag dive in mentality. What is it, everyone?
Hashtag dive in mentality.
And episode 2 will be on again tonight. So we're dropping 2 after Adriana and Phil Cummins' advice from Circle Education and Game Changers. So episode 2 will be, Jason will be leading it with a special guest, and I'll be there as the curator as well. And it's the Fear to Journey. So my word of encouragement to end off today: always use intelligence before emotion. And maybe you'll understand, everyone, now why I've said that to you for so long. Hashtag dive in mentality. See you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the New Brew podcast, our first episode. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to stay in the grind of what we're doing on our social medias, be sure to check out the New Brew podcast on Instagram and Twitter. It's the New Brew PC. And if you want to check out our new resources that we're about to release very shortly, be sure to check our website, thenewbrewpc.com. That's www.thenewbrewpc.com.